Hi, so this is going to be a bit more of a serious video when compared to what I usually make. I understand that this is a very sensitive topic and I want to try and approach it with as much delicacy as I can. This isn't something where it's like, oh, I'm going to just joke about it, ha ha ha, and nothing like that at all. This is something that deserves to be taken seriously. This is something that should be talked about more. I'm highly disappointed in the cartoon community. I'm highly disappointed that there are cartoon YouTubers that they're really big, they have massive followings, and yet they just choose to stay silent towards this whole thing. I understand this is a sensitive topic, but that doesn't mean you have to stay silent towards it and not talk about it. There are, of course, cartoon YouTubers that have actually gone on to talk about this situation and bring awareness to it, to condemn Nickelodeon for allowing everything that happened to happen. But most cartoon YouTubers choose to stay silent towards this, and I am highly disappointed by that fact. I'm disappointed at the fact that cartoon YouTubers choose to stay silent towards this in favor of focusing on things that are honestly much less important in comparison. I understand it's controversial for me to say that Coyote vs. Acme's cancellation is not as important as this, but it is not as important as this. I'm sorry. There's nothing wrong with talking about Coyote vs. Acme's cancellation, but that should not be what we should all be talking about right now. That should not be our main focus right now. I just wish to say that if there's anyone watching this that has gone through similar experiences at any point in your life, traumatic moments, I just want to say, please talk to someone. Please get help, talk to someone, talk to a therapist, talk to someone that you trust, a friend, a family member, anyone. I understand it's hard to talk about these sort of things. It's hard to relive traumatic moments in your life, but your story needs to be heard. Whatever experience you have went through, or God forbid you're going through right now, just please talk to someone. Anyone that you could trust, a therapist, a friend, a family member, anyone. Do not just bottle up your emotions and just get help, please. This is a video condemning Nickelodeon and holding them accountable for things that have come out about them, about a prolific person that worked for them throughout the 2000s and 2010s. And this video is to encourage people to stop supporting Nickelodeon, to boycott Nickelodeon, to not engage with anything they do from here on out, to completely ignore them, let them suffer the consequences of their actions. I don't care what they do in the future. I don't care what they do with SpongeBob. I don't care what they do with Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't care if they announce Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 3 or whatever. I don't care what they do. They could bring back all of their old shows, and that's not going to be enough. They can be like, oh, hey guys, we're going to bring back Invader Zim and Danny Phantom and Jimmy Neutron and whatever. That would not be enough to make me change my mind and start supporting them. I am not going to take the bait, and you shouldn't either. You are smarter than that. I know it. I'm sure most of you are aware of a certain someone that worked at Nickelodeon by the name of Dan Schneider. He was a very prolific creator at Nickelodeon, as stated before. He created several live-action sitcoms for the network. He created some of the most popular live-action shows for Nickelodeon. Some shows that he created include Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, iCarly, Victorious, Sam and Cat, and Henry Danger, just to name a few. For a long time, there have been theories that Schneider is a bit of a fucked up individual, let's say. Around the early to mid 2010s. I'm not exactly sure when. I think it was like 2012 or 2013 was when people started to get more suspicious of the stuff he puts into his shows, but I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. People started noticing that in a lot of his shows, there were a concerningly large amount of jokes relating to feet. I'm not gonna show off any examples for obvious reasons. The only example that I'm gonna give off is on the Twitter account for one of his shows, Sam and Cat. There was a tweet that was made, something along the lines of, write down hashtag Sam and Cat on your feet and then post a picture of it, or something like that. And keep in mind that this is a show intended for a younger audience, mainly girls. And just like that, things start becoming a lot more alarming and concerning. Dan Schneider was eventually fired from Nickelodeon in early 2018, but by that point, the damage had already been done. Things escalated in 2022 when a book would be released by Jeanette McCurdy, a former actress that appeared on one of his shows, iCarly, where she played the character of Sam Puckett. Sometime in 2022, she released a book entitled I'm Glad My Mom Died, where she would go into detail about the trauma that she went through in her childhood, the abuse that she experienced with her mother, and the on-set experiences that she would have on iCarly and Sam and Cat. The book doesn't directly mention Dan Schneider by name, however he is frequently brought up under the name The Creator. On iCarly, a lot of the jokes with Sam involved her eating food, and in real life this caused Jeanette McCurdy to get an eating disorder. To just give an example of something that she went through on the set of iCarly, and as a result of her past experiences, she would eventually retire from acting, and she would go on to regret her acting career. Hence why Sam didn't return in the iCarly revival from 2021. Everything culminated earlier this year when a documentary was released onto HBO Max named Quiet on Set. In the documentary, several former child actors who had worked on Dan Schneider's shows would go on to expose everything that they had went through on the set of these shows. One of the stories covered in the documentary was from Drake Bell, one of the two stars of Dan Schneider's Drake and Josh show. In the documentary, Drake Bell reveals that when he was only 15 years old, he went through something inhumane, to say the least, from someone named Brian Peck, who had worked on several of Dan Schneider's shows. Now, it's important for me to note that Brian Peck is not in any way related to Josh Peck, who was Drake's co-star on Drake and Josh. As a result of his actions, Brian was arrested. However, his jail time didn't last very long. I believe it was only 16 months or something like that. I apologize if I got that wrong. During that time, several people would go out to write letters in support of Brian. One of those people was actor James Marsden, who you may know as Tom from the Sonic movies. Now, some of the people that wrote letters supporting Brian have gone on to express regret over writing those letters when they found out about what Brian did. However, as of making this video, James Marsden has yet to comment on the letter that he wrote. Unless James comes forward and apologizes for writing the letter, I highly recommend that you don't watch the third Sonic movie when it comes out in theaters in December of this year. Sail the 7 seas if you must for this movie, but please do not watch it in theaters. I don't care how much of a Sonic fan you are. I get it's exciting to see Sonic Adventure 2 in movie form, but just don't watch it in theaters. There's already a lot of different reasons to not watch the third Sonic movie in theaters, but this is just one of them. 4 episodes of the documentary have been released so far, with the 5th and final episode expected to come out on April 7th, which is hopefully the same day that this video comes out. After the release of the first 4 episodes, several former actors that had worked on different live-action Nickelodeon shows, not just the ones from Dan Schneider, would go on to talk about their own experiences on set and also express sympathy for those that came forward with their stories of abuse. The release of the documentary paints Nickelodeon in a very negative light, much more negative than ever before. Nickelodeon had already been going through a downward spiral throughout the late 2010s and early 2020s, and this may very well be the final nail in the coffin. I will be amazed if Nickelodeon somehow manages to recover from this. I will be amazed if Nickelodeon somehow manages to keep a good reputation after everything that has come out. Dan Schneider had been with Nickelodeon since the mid to late 90s, I believe. I don't know exactly when. I believe The Amanda Show was the first show that he made, and that came out in 1998, I think, so at least 1998 he was involved with Nickelodeon. And then he was fired in 2018. So he was with Nickelodeon for at least 20 years. Almost all of the shows that he would put out for Nickelodeon, they would end up being some of the most successful live-action shows from Nickelodeon. iCarly is arguably their most successful live-action show. The fact that they just left this man to be working on all of these shows, to be traumatizing all of these innocent children for basically over 20 years is disgraceful. For sure, the higher-ups and whatnot at Nickelodeon, they knew about Dan Schneider, and they chose to do nothing about it because his shows made Nickelodeon money. iCarly and Victorious and whatever, they made a lot of money for the network. They were successful shows, and it's just truly disgusting to think about what everyone on these shows went through, and it makes it harder to sit through these now. And the thing is, these are good shows. Like, they're funny. If you look past all of the foot crap that's in Drake and Josh, there are a lot of genuinely funny, iconic moments in Drake and Josh. The treehouse scene is a classic. I don't think anyone's gonna disagree with me on that. But stuff like this becomes less funny when you take into consideration everything that Dan Schneider had been putting these people through behind the scenes. These are people that could have had normal childhoods, but they never did. And then sometimes it's like a cycle. Sometimes the abused can become the abuser. And then it just makes things even more depressing. I brought up Drake Bell as a big part of the documentary. Back in 2021, there were allegations made against him from a minor. I'm going to admit that I don't know the full extent of the allegations, and even if I did, I don't think I would go into detail about them because I don't want the video to get taken down. But it's just really sad to see that, like, now we know, like, the full story. It's a cycle of abuse, and I feel it is important for me to note, you can simultaneously feel bad for what Drake Bell went through while also condemning the stuff that came out about him in 2021. You can do that. What he went through as a kid doesn't automatically forgive the stuff that came out about him back in 2021, but at least it gives us an understanding as to why it happened. And it's just, again, a really sad story that, like, it's just a cycle. Sometimes the abused can become the abuser, and you just wish it never happened. I'm sure, like, they wish it never happened, but it did, and they can't do anything about it. What happened, and nothing can change it. The only thing they can do now is tell their story and spread awareness, make more people aware of what they went through. I am highly disappointed at the fact that almost no cartoon YouTubers are talking about this. I am disappointed in the fact that the general animation community just seemingly is ignoring this. They're not putting this as their main focus. I understand that this is a serious topic that should be treated with delicacy, but that doesn't mean you should stay silent about this and instead focus on things that are, quite frankly, less important than this. I hate the fact that some Looney Tunes movie getting cancelled is seen as a more important thing from the animation community than this. Cartoon YouTubers will make a billion videos on Coyote vs. Acme's cancellation, but then they'll stay completely silent towards this. I hate that fact. There's nothing wrong with talking about Coyote vs. Acme, but to treat it like it's more important than this, to prioritize the Coyote vs. Acme over this is just wrong. Don't even put the two topics on the same level and treat them like they're equally important. They are not. This is easily a more important situation than Coyote vs. Acme's cancellation, and yet most cartoon YouTubers would rather talk about Coyote vs. Acme's cancellation instead. And that's not right. Megamind getting a bad sequel is not more important than this, and yet cartoon YouTubers will make a billion videos on Megamind 2, but then they'll stay silent towards this stuff that's come out, and that's just wrong. That's not right at all. You don't know it now, but this paints a really bad image for the animation community. We spend all this time spreading awareness of Coyote vs. Acme's cancellation, but then when it comes to something like this, we just stay completely silent towards it. That's not a good image for us. All that will do is portray us in a negative light, which is something that none of us want. Again, I understand that this is a serious topic that deserves to be treated with the respect and delicacy that it deserves. One could argue that it's better for someone to not talk about a serious situation at all than it is for someone to talk about a serious situation in a very poor manner that unintentionally comes off as tone deaf and disrespectful. But still, that doesn't mean you should ignore this and not spread any awareness towards it. You don't even have to go into excessive detail on what these people went through. You can bring up the stuff that Jeanette McCurdy and Drake Bell went through in vague detail. You don't have to explicitly say what they went through or anything like that if you're worried about having your video get taken down or whatever. The main thing you can do is just condemn Nickelodeon and hold them accountable for just allowing all of this to happen. Stop talking about their shows, stop giving them any sort of support, stuff like that. If you're not gonna go into detail about everything that Dan Schneider had done, then okay, fine. But at the very least, condemn Nickelodeon and hold them accountable for allowing Dan Schneider to get away with so much stuff. Just stop talking about their shows. Stop acknowledging their existence. Just boycott Nickelodeon, please. Do not give these people your time. Do not give these people your money. Do not give these people your respect. They deserve none of these things. I'm not just saying this to the animation community. I'm not saying this to cartoon YouTubers like Mr. Enter and Veilski Bum and whatever. I'm saying this to just everyone that's watching this video. You, the audience, stop talking about Nickelodeon. Stop acknowledging their shows. Stop supporting them. Please. I don't care if it's like, oh no, but I have too much nostalgia for them. My childhood, they were a big part of my childhood. I can't boycott them. Yes, you can, and you will. I swear to God, I don't want to see a single person in the comments talk about their childhood. Your childhood does not matter in this situation. Nobody cares about your childhood right now. You had a normal childhood. Drake Bell didn't. Jeanette McCurdy didn't. Amanda Bynes didn't. Think about that, will ya? Stop being egotistical and thinking, oh, woe is me, the world revolves around me, I'm the only thing in the world that matters, and just think about other people. Please. You shouldn't be defending these people just because of your childhood. Forget about your childhood for just a few minutes and focus on what's actually important. I understand that this is for the live action side of Nickelodeon, and that the animation side is largely unrelated. I understand that the animators that are working on SpongeBob and whatever have nothing to do with any of this, but as much as I hate to say it, they're guilty by association. There is no way to support the animators at Nickelodeon without also supporting the high higher-ups that allowed for all of this to happen. It is f***ing impossible to do that. And I just want to say something very important. If there's anyone watching this video that has kids, if there's anyone watching this that's a parent, that a mom, a dad, anything like that, if anyone watching this is planning to become a parent in the nearby future, or if anyone watching this has like a younger brother or a younger sister, any sort of like siblings, kids, anything like that, do not let them watch these shows. Do not show them iCarly or Zoe 101. Do not let them watch them at all. I don't care how nostalgic you are for these shows. You just don't let them watch these shows, and that's it. I don't care how nostalgic you are for them. Listen, I get it. It sucks when you're not able to have your kid watch something that you watched when you were a kid yourself. I understand that. It hurts. I hate the fact that my future children will never be able to watch Drake and Josh. I hate the fact that my kids will never be able to watch the treehouse scene. I hate the fact that if I ever have two boys, neither one will ever once utter the iconic phrase, "Hug me, brother." I hate that fact, but at the same time, it's for the better. It hurts that my kids cannot watch some of these shows, but it's for the better. I feel like this is an important thing that I should have brought up much earlier on into the video, like around the beginning, but Drake and Josh and iCarly were the only Dan Schneider shows that I watched when I was a kid, and although I would have loved it if I never grown up with any of his shows, I'm just grateful that I only watched 2 of his shows and that's it. I'm so glad I never watched Victorious or anything like that. Now that I'm older, I'm smart enough to know that, like, I cannot have my kids watch any of these shows. I cannot have them watch Drake and Josh and iCarly. Even though I watched these 2 shows as a kid, that doesn't mean that my future children have to watch them, especially regarding everything that's come out. I understand it sucks to not have your kids watch shows that you yourself watched when you were a kid, especially now in today's day and age when kids are just growing up watching complete and utter dog shit. Just bottom of the barrel slop that'll rot their brains. But at the same time, it's better for them to just not watch these shows. That's not even taking into consideration the fact that, like, let's say you for some reason show your kids Drake and Josh, in which case you're a terrible parent, but that's beside the point. Your kid grows up watching Drake and Josh, he loves it, he finds it funny and hilarious and whatnot, and then what happens when he gets older and he finds out about Dan Schneider and what Drake Bell went through, and then what? Whatever childhood memories he had, they're ruined. He is unable to sit down and watch this show again and still find it funny. I want to imagine by that point that kid would move on to stuff that's more for his age, like he's older now and so he starts watching stuff like Game of Thrones or whatever, but like he would still have nostalgic memories of Drake and Josh, and those memories have now been ruined because now he knows about everything that's come out with Dan Schneider and what Drake Bell went through. So it's much easier to just not have your kids watch these shows at all, rather than have your kids watch these shows and then find out much later on as they get older that, uh-oh, these shows are f***ing problematic. Just don't let your kids watch these shows, for the love of God. Kids nowadays are already watching brain-dead garbage. You want to make things even worse? Like, seriously. If you let your kids watch these shows just because you have childhood nostalgia for them, then you're just as bad as the parents that just sit their kids in front of an iPad and then go and off to do God knows what, and so their kids are just watching Skibbity Toilet and Lanky Box and Sniper Wolf and whatever, Mr. Incredible Becomes Uncanny, like all that stuff, just all these awful, terrible things. This might be a bit of an overreaction, but I don't care. Letting your kids watch these shows at this point is no better or different from letting your kids watch an Elsa Gate video. Yes, I am going there. I don't care. Just because they're more professionally made than an Elsagate video doesn't mean that they're better. I'm sure there are a lot of shows from your childhood that you could have your kids watch. Yeah, okay, it sucks that I can't have my kids watch Drake and Josh, but guess what? There are other shows that I watched when I was a kid that I could have my kids watch instead. I mean, I'm still very skeptical about showing my kids anything Nickelodeon related. Even if it's stuff like SpongeBob or Blue's Clues or whatever, I'm still very cautious about letting them watch that stuff. Because again, guilty by association. But I could just have my kids watch, like Ed and Nettie or whatever. It would be fine. There's alternatives. I want to go into detail now about something that I made a lot of videos talking about throughout last year in 2023, and I want you to consider this my final update on this. Last year in 2023, I discovered that there was an animated web series based on one of Dan Schneider's sitcoms called The Lil Sam and Cat Show. I made a video talking about it and how it was bad and whatnot, but then, a few months later, I found out that a lot of the episodes of the show were lost. I had unknowingly stumbled upon lost media. And as a result of that, I went ahead and started archiving various episodes of this web series. I spent money buying all of these Sam and Cat DVDs, seeing if they would have these Lil Sam and Cat episodes as like a bonus feature or something. I did extensive research on this whole thing. More research than anyone should have ever done on anything. And ever since this documentary came out, I've decided to end the search for the Lil Sam and Cat Show. I no longer want to be associated with the search for this thing, and I regret ever starting it. I regret ever making people aware of it. I had a Google Drive that contained every episode of the show that I had archived. I deleted that Google Drive. It's gone. All that hard work archiving different episodes of the show, gone. Just like that. I don't care. I understand, lost media, preservation is important. No. Some things should just stay lost media forever. Some things deserve to be forgotten about. I don't know anyone that would actually get f***ing mad at me for this. Like, if this was, something important, then I would understand it. But, it's a Sam and Cat web series. Why the hell would anyone get mad at me for letting this become lost media again? Seriously. I don't want to be associated with this search anymore. Do not try and find the missing episodes or anything like that. Just leave this be. Leave it lost. It should stay lost. That's where it belongs. I know there's going to be people watching this that'll oh wow, I had no idea there was a Sam and Cat cartoon. Yeah. Forget about it now. Go back to how things were when you didn't know this thing existed. Let it sink back into obscurity where it belongs. There are tons of things out there, lost media and whatever, that they deserve to be found more than this. Leave this lost forever. I don't care. I'd also like to go ahead and talk about another Nickelodeon related thing that a lot of people have been talking about lately. This isn't as important as the Quiet on Set documentary, however, I feel like the two of them are connected in some way, and if by some chance they're not connected at all, then this is the most unfortunate timing for this to happen at all. So very recently, there were several Nickelodeon shows that were removed off of Paramount Plus, the main streaming service for Nickelodeon shows. There was a Rugrats cartoon that came out a few years ago that got removed. There was a Blue's Clues revival that got removed. There was a Big Nate cartoon that got removed. There was just a lot of different shows that got removed. Very similar to the great HBO Max purge of 2022, where shows like Infinity Train and Close Enough would just be removed from the service. And yet, despite this, all of Dan Schneider's shows are very likely still on Paramount Plus. If I had Paramount Plus and I went onto it right now, I guarantee you I would still find Victorious and Zoe 101 and whatever, Henry Danger. I would still find all of these shows on there. Also, I recently went onto Netflix because I remembered there were several Dan Schneider shows on Netflix. And just imagine my shock when I saw that, again, there were still Dan Schneider shows on Netflix. iCarly, Victorious, Sam and Cat, Zoe 101, Drake and Josh, they're all on Netflix. I have no idea when they added Drake and Josh onto Netflix. It must have been a recent addition, but it's very poorly timed, let's just say. I just mainly want to focus on Paramount Plus, though. The fact that, like, they decided to remove all these random shows that have nothing to do with Quiet on Set, and then the shows that are actually giving them a bad reputation, they decide to keep on there. Now, I personally believe that Nickelodeon is far beyond redemption for this whole thing. I don't think they can be redeemed. The only way a redemption arc of any form could happen with Nickelodeon at this point is if they just shut down entirely, if they just permanently shut their doors and that's it. I'll be amazed if Nickelodeon is somehow still around by the end of this year, and I'll be extra amazed if they manage to improve their reputation, but I'll go into detail about that in a little bit. If all of these shows were removed off of Paramount Plus, then, well, obviously that's not going to be enough. That's still not going to be enough to save Nickelodeon's reputation and make them good. They're going to have to do a lot more things than just remove these shows if they want a chance at redemption. And again, I don't even know if Nickelodeon can be able to redeem themselves from this. But still, if these shows were removed off of Paramount Plus and Netflix, that would at least be a start. That would at least be a step forward to a redemption arc. A very small step forward, but a step forward nonetheless. They could have been able to remove these shows off of Paramount Plus, and they chose not to. They chose to remove a bunch of random other shows instead, just further ruining their reputation, further damaging their image. And I think this alone is just enough proof that Nickelodeon has no chance of redemption. They cannot be saved. There is no chance in hell that Nickelodeon can be forgiven or redeemed for allowing all of this to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if they start getting desperate. They start trying to make people like them again. I wouldn't be surprised if they just announce like, oh yeah, we're making Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 3 or some crap like that in a desperate attempt to get people to like them again. I wouldn't be surprised if out of nowhere they're just like, oh hey, guess what guys, we're gonna bring back Invader Zim, we're gonna bring back Danny Phantom, we're gonna bring back Jimmy Neutron, we're gonna bring back My Life as a Teenage Robot, we're gonna bring back all of the shows that you liked when you were a kid. Please like us again. Please forget about Quiet on Set. Who the heck is Dan Schneider? I know for a fact they're gonna try and do something like that. And you are all smart enough to not fall for it. You are all smart enough to not take the bait. You are all smart enough to ignore and boycott this shit if they ever do such a thing. If you're a cartoon YouTuber and they do such a thing, just ignore it. Don't talk about it. Don't bring attention towards it. Let them suffer the consequences of their actions. If Nickelodeon shuts down, I would not miss them. And you shouldn't miss them either. Again, there are good people that have worked at Nickelodeon. There were good people that have worked at Nickelodeon. Steven Hillenburg and Steve Burns, for example, they're both great people, and they've worked at Nickelodeon. I understand, again, that this is for the live-action side, and not the animation side. And I hate the fact that, like, if Nickelodeon shuts down, it would be a great thing, but it would also be a bad thing because then a lot of people would lose their jobs. A lot of animators that work on like SpongeBob and TMNT and whatnot, they would lose their jobs. I hate that fact. But at the same time, again, guilty by association. There's no way to support the animators at Nickelodeon without also supporting the people that allowed Dan Schneider to get away with all the shit that he did. That is impossible to do. If Nickelodeon shuts down, I will not miss them. I have lost all respect for this studio. I hate the fact that for a long time I just keep complaining to Nickelodeon about like, oh, they only air SpongeBob and Loud House and that's it, when like, that's not the problem with them. I regret making a big deal about the whole like, they milk SpongeBob and Loud House, like all that crap, when it's like, there's more important things to hate about them. This is akin to like with Disney, where it's like there's tons of reasons to hate Disney, and then people choose to hate them for the stupidest reasons. Disney could do the most awful, inhumane thing you could possibly think of, and people will completely ignore it and hate on them because some girl said she doesn't like an old movie. It's so insulting, seriously, to not focus on things that are actually important, things that actually matter. I refuse to make any more videos talking about Nickelodeon stuff unless they get their together, unless they take accountability. I refuse to talk about anything they do from here on out. Any of their shows, movies, and anything like that. You should do the same thing as well. Any big cartoon YouTuber should just boycott Nickelodeon and not talk about them. Every big YouTuber, Mr. Enter, Veilski Bum, Saberspark, whatever, Nickelodeon. Ignore them. Do not give them your time or your money or your respect. They deserve none of those things. Stop complaining about a Looney Tunes movie getting cancelled and focus on something that's actually important. If you actually get mad at me for saying that a Looney Tunes movie getting cancelled isn't as important as this, then that just says so much about who you are as a person. That just shows me where your priorities are. And I know you can be better than that. Under no circumstance is a movie getting cancelled more important than this. And yet I've seen tons of cartoon YouTubers talk about Coyote vs. Acme's cancellation, yet they stay completely silent towards this. And that's just disappointing to me. It really is. I know you can all do better. There are cartoon YouTubers, again, that have talked about this, and I have major respect to those that actually go on to talk about this and spread awareness, to condemn Nickelodeon for allowing all of this stuff to happen. But you're gonna have to do more than just that. Don't say, oh, Dan Schneider is bad and Nickelodeon is bad, Quiet on Set is depressing, stuff like that, and then go on to keep talking about whatever they do next with SpongeBob. No. Just do not talk about Nickelodeon. I refuse to talk about anything relating to Nickelodeon from here on out, unless by some chance they get their together. I refuse to make a video on that live-action Loud House show that came out a few years ago. I shouldn't even have to explain why. I feel like it's extremely obvious as to why I will never make a video on this thing. If they ever make a third live-action Loud House movie, I'm not going to talk about it either. I'm not even going to watch either of these. There's an extremely small chance, like a 0.1% chance, that I could make a video on the animated Loud House movies. But again, there's a very low chance that that will ever happen. And if it does happen, it won't be for a very, very, very long time. Stop watching Nickelodeon. Stop supporting Nickelodeon. If you want to watch their old shows, then either sail the 7 seas for them, or just buy old DVDs of these shows secondhand on like eBay or a thrift store or whatever. Hold Nickelodeon accountable for everything that they've done. Condemn them for allowing all of this to happen, and just keep boycotting them and not acknowledging anything they do from here on out. Ignore whatever they do with SpongeBob, Avatar The Last Airbender, TMNT, whatever. I read something that like the Avatar Netflix series has gone 2 more seasons. Don't watch them when they come out. Completely ignore the 2nd and 3rd seasons of that Avatar The Last Airbender Netflix series when they come out. Don't make a video about Quiet on Set and how Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider are bad, and then like the very next video you're like, oh hey guys, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 3 just got announced, isn't that crazy? No. When I say boycott Nickelodeon, I mean boycott them. No exceptions. I hate that I have to do this to the animators behind like SpongeBob and all that. But again, guilty by association. If you don't want to go into excessive detail on the Dan Schneider situation and what Drake Bell and Jeanette McCurdy and whatnot went through, fine, that's understandable. But at the very least, hold Nickelodeon accountable, condemn their actions, condemn them for allowing this to happen, and just don't talk about whatever they do from here on out, unless they either shut down or they owe up to their mistakes. Only then would you be allowed to talk about about Nickelodeon stuff again. I'm sorry for this being a really long video, but I just wanted to talk about it. I refuse to be silent towards this. It is a very disgusting, horrific situation. I feel super bad for everyone that has just been affected. It makes me feel guilty for watching these shows, you know? I wish I could just go back in time and like talk to my 8-year-old self and be like, hey, stop watching iCarly. Please, stop watching Drake and Josh. Don't watch any of those shows because it's just a really depressing situation. Just awful, really. I'm sorry for this video being a really serious, depressing video, but it just needed to be said. I promise the next video is going to be a lot more fun, lighthearted, but I just needed to get all of this out of the way. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.